Hello. Little something more about nuts and bolts, more specifically about threads. Maybe you've got a bolt or nut or something that's got some damaged threads, or maybe you've got a shaft that you need to thread. What do you do? Well, one of the big things is just simply having a tap and die set, which I happen to have right here. Now this is a Vermont American that I actually bought from my Cornwall tool man. And it's got both SAE and metric, fine and coarse. It's got the tap holders, a couple of different ones of those. And of course the smaller one I can't get out. This is for the small ones, the other one's for the larger ones. Then you have the typical tap holder, and you have the die holder. Now, which ones are taps and which ones are dies? A lot of people have problems with that. Your taps go inside. Your dies go around the outside. Pretty much that simple. So if you're needing to thread something, this will thread it. Can you repair threads using these? Well, yes and no. Yes, you can use them, but generally what will happen is your threads will be a little bit looser. It's the only difference. If that's not a big deal, don't worry about it. Go ahead and use them if you want to. If, let's say you've got some bunged up threads here somewhere and you need to repair them. Well, if you don't want to use these, or you don't have the right size, because believe it or not, a lot of people seem to think these are complete sets. Well, they are not. This happens to be a 12 millimeter 1.25 die, and again a 12 millimeter 1.25 tap, which I had to buy from my Mac tool man because he's the only one that had them. They do not come with the set. Instead, you have a 12 by 1.75 and a 12 by 1.5. Why do they make these but not include them? There's so many specialty sizes that a complete tap set would probably be $1,000 or better, and that's not from Snap-on. So yeah, just find the ones that you actually need, and these little things are worth their weight in gold pretty much. They're your thread finders. Saw them, some of you use them on the last video. And of course, again, this has metric and SAE. So SAE are here, metrics are over here. Use the tools on both of them, not a big deal, pretty simple. But enough about the tap and die set. So let's say you have some threads that are messed up on a bolt. Specifically, let's say it's a starting thread and you can't get the thing to start. How do you fix that? Here's a nice handy little tool, little Harbor Freight special I bought decades ago, back when there was no Harbor Freight in this area. I had to mail order, catalog, set of needle files, and what you can do, depending on which size and such you've got. This particular one And you can see it's got the rough stuff in there on the flat, but on the back side there's nothing there. So what that's good for is you can take a bunged up thread there, come in like so and angle it, and just simply work it back and forth until you get the results you need. Generally doesn't take very long unless it's really messed up bad. And there's different ones here that you can use depending on what type you've got. There's a regular triangle, been used quite a bit. I've had these, like I said, since probably the early 90s. Here's another one that's kind of oval. I've used it quite a bit. These are great for external threads. And though you don't have to have the right size per se, because you're handling it, you're working wherever the threads are messed up. Now the only thing I have done here, aside from the fact of losing one of them, is I put this magnet on the back side of it. That way I can have it right there on the lid of my toolbox, always right there, always handy. Good tool to have. If you are a mechanic, you have a toolbox and you don't have a set of these, I highly recommend you get some. Now the regular files, the regular needle files, they're good. I just find that the diamond needle files are a little better. Now, when I first saw these, I thought, oh my God, these things are junk, until I used them. They've been fantastic. Like I said, I bought these back in probably 93, 94, somewhere around there, 2024. I've used them a bunch. A lot of the guys there at work have used these. I've actually had other guys there at work, after they've used these, go out to Harbor Freight and buy these. Now, is Harbor Freight the only place you can get these? Probably not. Anywhere that you can get some diamond needle files, pick up a good set. Make sure you've got them in your toolbox. Very handy tool. Another thing that you can use is a thread file or chaser. Basically, this one, it's SAE only, and this is a Mac tool. I don't know if you can see that or not, but yeah, it's Mac tool. But you find the right thread, get it in there, and just simply go across. Keep working it till you fix the threads that are messed up. Real simple. Now this one, this is 24, 14, 12, and 18. What happens if you got a different size that you need? Hey, take this little plastic cover off, put it on the other side. Now you've got 16, 20, 13, and 11. So you've got 8 different sizes on this one tool. Now there's others that you can get, and there's metrics that you can get. Real good for chasing external threads. They will work on anything of that thread pitch, regardless of diameter. Nice little tool to have. Say you're kind of in a hurry and it's a smaller tool, like say this little nugget here, that's 3/8 course. Well, I happen to have a nice little set of chasing backs. I don't remember which tool company I bought this from, but this at first looks like just a set of dies. But the way you use these is you select the appropriate size, open them up, install your bolt in here, then put the tool you want on it. Now this is just a regular handle. You can spin it around, take it right off, clean them threads up. That's the reason you chase them back. You start it at the head, chase them back, the beginning threads will be straightened out, then you can start it. Also, if the damage is pretty severe and you need to put some real oomph power on it, you have this little tool which you can tighten down, put a 3/8 ratchet in here, get your wrench, and then just ratchet it off, and you cleaned your threads all the way to the end. Nice, simple, fantastic. Only big problem is, from the best of my understanding, nobody makes or sells these chasing backs anymore. I got lucky and tool man knew me, and he said, "Hey John, here's your tool I think you can probably use, and I'd like for you to give it a try anyway. And if you don't want them, you don't want to buy them, fine, but just take them and try them for a week, see what you think of them." I did. Needless to say, I bought them. I've had several people look for them recently, trying to find a set. Apparently, they no longer make them. But say you're at a yard sale and you find a full set, or maybe a partial set of taps and dies. The only difference really between this 3/8/16 and this 3/8/16 is this was actually designed to cut threads. This one was designed to clean them. But this is on a hinge and you can open it up. If you've got a cheap old set tap and die, or maybe most of the taps are broke, all you've got left is the dies. Hey, you can cut these with a very thin kerf, like a Dremel tool or something like that. Cut that. That way you can put one half on one side, one half on the other side. Take generally it's a 1-inch socket, put over it, work it back. There you go. Same basic thing. And you just made your own set of chasing backs. And that will work for pretty much any and all of these. You just got to cut them in half first, and don't get too tight with them, like use a pair of vice grips or crescent that you really tighten down on, because if you do, these will cut more threads in here and will make this very, very loose. So you'll need to be very sparingly with the tension on these, whereas these here, you will want to tighten these little set screws down real tight. Oh, and let's just say you want to make something like this. Well, all you really need is a 1-inch deep well socket of the appropriate drive that you want. Drill and tap a hole in the side. That way you can put a little bolt in there to put a little tension in there. Got your nice little holder. Or, of course, you can just use this and use it. It's already designed to use these. You put that in there, snug that down just a little bit, unthread until you pulled these completely out. And there you go. Now you've repaired the beginning threads or middle threads, whatever, on your bolt that you need. But what if you need something a little bigger? That's where these came in. These are actually for trucks, and they're for wheel studs. These actually have a 3/4 16, but they are right and left hand thread. And you can literally take them out, wrap them around your stud, clamp it down, get the appropriate socket or wrench, pull these off, thread them off, and then your wheel stud is repaired, you can put the new or the nut in, and you just save the customer a bunch of money. Handy little tool to have if you're a truck mechanic. If you're not a truck mechanic, you don't have any trucks, you know, there's no reason to have something like that. And again, unfortunately, I don't think you can even buy these anymore. But let's say you don't have access to any of these. What else can you use? Well, do you have a little Dremel tool? And I don't care if it's corded, cordless, Dremel branded, some other off-brand, maybe Snap-on or Craftsman or whatever. Matter of fact, my wife has a Hart rotary tool, and any of those will work as long as you have a set of something like these different bits. And longtime viewers of these channels will know that this again comes from my earlier video about modifying cases. But how can you use a Dremel to clean threads? Did you know these little cutting wheels, if you're careful, you can get in here and just basically buzz those around your threads and clean them up. If you've got a large nut that you've messed up the threads or something has happened, you can again put these on your little Dremel tool, work them down in here, and you can work them in and out and clean up those threads so you can get your nuts back on wherever you need to. So these will work for inside as well as outside. And as they get smaller, hey, like right now, this won't fit in here. Once I wear it down using the outside or cutting stuff, I can probably take this, once it's wore down, and get in here and clean these threads if I needed to. Of course, these threads are okay, so I don't need to, but I could if I needed to. They also make other kinds of tools, and let's see, yeah, here we go. You can go to, again, Harbor Freight or other places and buy these little diamond bits. And if you can get one of these little bitty tiny discs that are more V-shaped, such as this big one here, I figure you might be able to see that a little better. Now this big one, again, I could put it right in here and clean these threads by spinning it using a air grinder, die grinder, cordless corded tool, drill, anything like that, and I can just keep going around and around until I get the threads all cleaned up. But you need a small one. You use something like that, you get in here, do the same thing with it. Clean them threads right up, works good, but you don't have very many of these that will work that way. You can even take some of these little pointed ones and work on your outer threads. Another way of possibly doing it that you might already have in your house. Now, what happens if you don't have the right size tap, die, thread chaser, whatever? Maybe it's an inside thread. Maybe it's in a block that you can't get the bolt or the nut out, but you need to get in there and clean it out for whatever reason. Nifty little trick and something simple to do. Again, as I told you in the last video, this happens to be an old head bolt. What you can do is take one of these little cutters and go down through here and cut you some grooves in here, 4 to 6, somewhere in there. And then what you have is you have something that looks kind of similar to your tap, but it's the correct thread size for what you're working on. Then you can simply take the old bolt, thread it down in there and back out, and all that gunk will be stuck inside those slits that you create. Don't have one of these. How about something like that? You can actually take that and go through and groove that thing. Do you have to use a Dremel? No. Any die grinder with a cutoff wheel, any kind of rotary tool of any size, you can do that same thing with. These larger discs like this, if you can get one to work right, you can come up through here, cut you some slots. That way, and actually the bigger the slots, the better, because more gunk can be held in your cleanout tool. Now, what if it's a stud sticking out of your engine or whatever it is you're working on? Well, you can't use this sort of stuff, right? That's where you're wrong. You can take something like this and cut you some notches in here, just like on the bolts. And the great thing is you can even do that to these little ones. Maybe just 4 little notches in there. Then thread this down over your stud. You've cleaned the threads on your stud. And once you get this back off, hey, take a little brake clean, compressed air, clean that sucker off, you're ready to assemble. Just that simple, that easy. And again, you can use plain hardware, as long as you've got extras, to make cleaning tools. And this is extremely helpful if the tool guy only comes once a week, or maybe you're stuck out in the middle of a field and you've got some extra hardware, but you don't have these tools. Maybe you forgot your diamond files or your thread file or whatever. If you've got a big cutoff wheel, you can take a regular bolt, notch that, and then you've got a cleanout tool for, whatever you're needing to clean, whether it's a nut or a hole in a block or whatever tool you're working on. That gives you something else that you can do. Now, if it's a inside thread, you can't use the really big ones, but these smaller tools, whether they're air powered, electric powered, corded, cordless, don't matter, as long as it will spin that thing, that bit, and that bit is hard enough to grind into these threads, you're making a cleanout tool. And you will find that if you take these, and this is going in, so if you angle it like this, it will grab and catch most of that stuff and put it down into those slots better than if you do this. Because if you do like this and you're threading it in, well, it's going to try to just roll over that stuff. Don't do it that way. Either straight or at an angle to where it's coming up like this, or it's coming up more like this, so it's actually gouging into your threads on your inside. And same thing with your inside threads. If you can take this and work it to where it's kind of slightly cut a little bit, it will grab the threads on your outer stuff better and clean it out more. Now, something else that you can do, use a nice little flexible attachment for your Dremel or whatever kind of rotary tool, make it a little easier to work with sometimes. So anyway, that's a few little tidbits. Something else that might be of help. Have you ever had a plug or a nut or a bolt or a fitting that is trying to strip out? Maybe it's not wanting to come loose. Take your tool, whatever tool it is that you've got in there. I don't care if it's a ratchet with a socket, a wrench, Allen wrench, a Torx, just whatever. Put it in there, push it, make sure you've got some way of having something down. Smack it real good, either with the palm or a hammer or something like that. That little instant jar can jar that thing loose and keep it from stripping and make it come on out. I've found that very useful on the 6mm Allen head plug in Endurance transmissions in these trucks. And I just had a coworker tell me that he did that the other day, and he said felt like it was starting to strip. And then he remembered talking to me about that and remembered my little information there, and he said he grabbed his hammer, gave it a good smack, and he said that thing came right loose, no problem. He was able to thread it out, drain the transmission, worked great. Gonna get a new plug to put in it because he felt the thing stripping, and he looked at it and he said it was starting to strip. But he was able to get the bolt or the plug out. Fantastic. Another thing, if you've got a fitting like this and it's trying to strip and you just can't do it any other way, you put your line wrench on, and if you've got, let's say it's metric, or better yet it's SAE, and let's say 7/16 is what fits it. Grab your 11mm line wrench instead. Tap that on. The 11mm is just slightly smaller than your 7/16, and it will grip it tighter. Then you can take your hammer, tap it real good. Usually it'll break it loose. If that doesn't work and all else fails and you've got to get that fitting out, something I have done, and I don't recommend it, but if it's a last ditch resort, get you some good vice grips, clamp it on, smack it real good and hard with a hammer. Usually that'll break it loose. Now you may have to replace your fitting, your flare nut, whatever it is you're having to get loose, but it'll keep you from having to replace a whole line and component that you're trying to get out, whatever it is. Possible help there. Hopefully that will help. Heat and cold also works wonders on threaded components. You heat something up, like a nut, usually that will cause it to expand and it'll come right loose. You've got a broken bolt, take a larger nut, fit over the broken end, weld it up real good and tight, let that thing cool off. You put an impact on there, buzzer right out, usually. Will it work every time? No, it doesn't. Most of the time it does. There's other things there that I could talk about, but I don't think I'm going to go into it that far in this video. But anyway, I think I spent enough time on threads in this video. There are some other tools out there. They've made one that actually has two little teeth that come down, and you adjust those, tighten it down, spin it, and it will clean your outer threads. Also, same company makes one that goes inside, and it's got like one little tooth that sticks out, and you can adjust it for different widths and such, and then all you need to do is start working it out, and it cleans all the threads, literally one thread at a time. How good are they? I don't know. I've never used them. If any of you out there have used those tools, and there's several different brands, several different price ranges. I've seen some from a single piece, a single one of those tools, anywhere from about 20 bucks up to a kit of about $1,500. So, but if you have used one and you know what I'm talking about, drop me a line, let me know what you think of them, so I know whether or not to spend the money on getting one, and maybe doing a later video showing you how those work. But as of right now, no, I don't have them. I've never used one. Don't know if they're any good or not. But this gives you hopefully some helpful advice on thread repair, cleaning them up, and using the simplest of tools to repair a few threads here and there, and maybe modifying some existing old hardware you've got into thread cleaners. I wouldn't call them taps and dies or anything like that, but thread cleaners, especially really good for cleaning out old oil and grease and gunk. You know, like you're tearing down an old engine, you need to kind of clean those up a little bit more if they're stuck and the plain cleaners aren't working. That's a good way of knocking them out and making them, you know, where you can clean them on up and reuse the hardware that you're needing to. So anyway, till next time, stay safe, stay active. Tune in for the next video. Bye.